In life, each person's soul is like a garden. It's the most vulnerable place, but also the one that needs the most nurturing. As the proverb goes, if I had 2 loaves of bread, I would sell one to buy a rose, for the soul also needs nourishment. A beautiful soul must be cultivated with faith, hope, and meaningful lessons. In this video, I will share with you 56 profound short stories. Each story is like a small seed that helps you nurture peace, maturity, and deeper insight into life. These are not just stories. They are a journey to discover timeless values so we can slow down and truly feel life. Story 1. Don't try to change the world. Once upon a time, there was a king who ruled a vast kingdom. One day, he decided to go on a journey to visit the most remote areas of his land. Upon returning to the palace, he complained that his feet hurt terribly. This was understandable. After all, it was his first time traveling such a long distance. The roads he had walked were rough and rocky. Frustrated by the pain, the king ordered all the roads in the kingdom to be covered with animal hide. Of course, this was an unreasonable and costly command, but no one dared to challenge him. Finally, a wise servant bravely stepped forward and said, "Why should your majesty waste the treasury so needlessly? Why not simply cut a few pieces of leather to wrap around your feet? That way, your feet will be protected on rocky roads, and the whole kingdom will save time, effort, and wealth." The king was surprised by this suggestion, but he agreed. And so, the first pair of shoes in history was born. Sometimes in life, we don't need the whole world to change for us. What we need is simply a change in our own perspective and way of thinking. Story 2. Go with the flow. There was once a sage who came across a massive waterfall. The water poured down from a height of about 200 feet, crashing with such force that no living creature could survive beneath it. But the sage saw an old man enter the waterfall. The sage thought the old man must be in trouble or mad to risk his life like that. He quickly sent a disciple downstream to try and rescue the man. To his surprise, the old man soon reappeared downstream, walking and singing with his white hair fluttering in the wind. The sage rushed over and asked, "Sir, I thought you were a god, but now I see you're human. How did you manage to survive the fierce current?" The old man calmly replied, "There's no special technique. I go in with the whirlpools and come out with the whirlpools. I simply allow myself to move with the flow instead of resisting it. That way, I can adapt easily." Story 3. The value of time. There was once a miserly man who saved every penny, never spending a dime on himself. After a lifetime of frugality, he amassed great wealth. One day, the god of death appeared to take him away. Only then did he realize he hadn't truly enjoyed any of his riches. He pleaded, "I'll give you 1/3 of my fortune, just let me live 1 more year." "No," said Death. "Then take half, just give me 6 more months," he begged. Still, Death refused. "Take it all, everything I have. Just give me 1 more day, please." "No," said Death, lifting his scythe. Desperate, the man made one final request. "Then give me 1 minute to write a will." Death nodded. With shaking hands, the man wrote, "Remember, no amount of money can buy a single day." Story 4. Who forgives whom? A man once sought to humiliate the Buddha to see how he would react. He spat on the Buddha's face. The Buddha calmly wiped his face and asked, "Do you have anything else to say?" As if the man had just spoken to him, not spat. The man was shocked and confused. Unable to comprehend this reaction, he walked away. That night, he couldn't sleep. He was tormented by guilt and regret for what he had done. The next morning, he came back, knelt before the Buddha, and begged for forgiveness. The Buddha said, Who is there now to forgive whom? The man you spat on no longer exists, and the one who spat is no longer here either. No apology is needed. Let the past be. Nothing remains to be done. Those two people are gone. It's over. You are a new person now, and I am a new person. Everything is in constant change. If you cling to the past, you'll only bring yourself suffering. Story 5. The Cat Without a Mouth. A little girl was often alone. Her parents were always at work, and she had few chances to talk to anyone. Her classmates were busy with school or obsessed with their high-tech 3D games. She felt lonely and withdrawn. Because she was small and shy, she was often bullied by older kids, pulled by the hair, her bag snatched, sometimes even hit. One afternoon, after being teased again, she wandered into a park near her home, sat on a bench, and cried. An old man sitting nearby saw her and asked, "Why aren't you going home after school? Why are you crying?" The girl sobbed. "I don't want to go home. It's so lonely. No one listens to me." "I'll listen," said the old man. And so she poured out her heart, all her sadness, frustrations, and pain. The old man just listened. He didn't judge or say anything, he just listened. When she finished, he gently told her not to be sad and to go home. From then on, after school, the girl would go to the park and tell stories to the old man. She grew more cheerful and confident. Life began to feel worth living again. One day, she was beaten by a classmate. In her distress, she ran to the park to find the old man, crossing the street without looking. She was hit by a car and died. The next day, at the same park, the same bench, the old man sat alone. He quietly burned a paper doll, a gift he had meant to give her the day before, but she hadn't come. It was a beautiful white cat, with big ears and round, gentle eyes, but no mouth. The old man wanted it to stay by her side, always listening without ever judging. Since then, every Japanese schoolchild has a mouthless cat doll on their desk. That cat is now known as Hello Kitty. It was created to listen to everyone in silence. Story 6. The Roots of Growth. When I was a child, I had a neighbor everyone called Dr. GPS. He wasn't like any doctor I had ever known. He was simple and gentle, especially with mischievous kids like us. Outside his work saving lives, he spent his time planting trees. He wanted to turn his acre of land into a forest. But this gentle doctor had some very strange planting theories, completely opposite of what most people believed. He never watered the young trees. He explained to me that watering them would spoil them, and the next generation would become weaker. They needed to be trained to face hardships. Any tree that couldn't survive would be uprooted early on. He even taught me how to water drought-resistant plants just enough so that during dry seasons, they would be forced to grow deep roots in search of water. That's why I never saw him water any trees. He once planted an oak tree and didn't water it for a month. Instead, he rolled up a newspaper and slapped it. Smack, smack, smack. When I asked why, he replied, "To make it pay attention." Dr. GPS passed away 2 years after I left home. Now when I return and look at his rows of trees, I picture him planting them 25 years ago. Those once small trees have now grown tall and vibrant, like strong young adults. Every morning, they stand tall and proud, ready to face any challenge. Years later, I planted 2 trees myself. I watered them during the burning summer. I sprayed them with medicine in the harsh winter. After 2 years, they stood 9 meters tall, but they depended entirely on my care. Just a cold wind would make them tremble and shake like weaklings, nothing like Dr. GPS's forest. It turns out that hardship and deprivation may do more for growth than comfort ever could. Story 7. The Scholar and the Boatman. A scholar once took a boat ride across the river. As the boatman rowed, the scholar started chatting. "Do you understand literature?" he asked. "No," replied the boatman. "What about history, zoology, or botany?" The boatman shook his head. The scholar scoffed. "You know nothing. You're just a waste of food and clothing." Not long after, dark clouds gathered, and a storm erupted. Waves tossed the boat violently. The scholar turned pale with fear. The boatman then asked, "Do you know how to swim?" "No. I know everything else, but not swimming." Just then, a huge wave flipped the boat. As the scholar screamed for help, the boatman pulled him to shore and said, "You mocked me for not knowing what you know. But in the end, what I know saved your life. Seems like you're the one who's truly a waste of food and clothing." Story 8. A lesson in confidence. It was the first day of math class with Mr. Peter. Right after entering the room, he gave us a test. Everyone was surprised when he handed out 3 different test papers and said, "Test A, mix of easy and hard questions, worth 10 points. Test B, mostly easy questions, worth 8 points. Test C, very easy questions, worth 6 points." We were free to choose. We had 15 minutes. I chose Test B to be safe, and so did everyone else. A week later, Mr. Peter handed the tests back. To our shock, everyone received the score of the test they chose, regardless of the answers. The class leader asked, "Why?" Mr. Peter smiled and replied seriously, "This test was about confidence. Many dream of getting a perfect 10, but few dare to challenge themselves to earn it. If you don't even try, you'll never know how far you can go." That day, we learned that fear of difficulty often holds us back from even starting. But only by believing in ourselves can we reach our highest potential. Story 9. The Lasting Nails. There was a boy with a bad temper. One day, his father gave him a bag of nails and said, "Each time you lose your temper, hammer a nail into the wooden fence." On the first day, the boy hammered 37 nails. But gradually, he learned to control himself. The number of nails decreased. He realized it was easier to control his anger than to hammer nails. One day, he didn't lose his temper at all. He told his father. "Good," his dad said. "Now, for every day you stay calm, pull out 1 nail." Eventually, the boy proudly said, "Dad, I've pulled out all the nails." His father led him to the fence and said gently, "You've done well, son. But look, see the holes left behind? This fence will never be the same again. When you speak in anger, your words are like these nails. Even if you say sorry later, the scars remain. Remember, emotional wounds can hurt more than physical ones. People around you, your friends, are like precious gems. They make you laugh, help you, and open their hearts to you. Treasure them." Story 10. One simple thank you. He couldn't have been more than 6. Dirty face, barefoot, messy hair, torn clothes. He looked just like the countless orphans roaming the streets of Rio de Janeiro. As I was walking to a cafe, thinking about work and the class I was about to teach, I felt a tap on my arm. I stopped. No one. Another tap. I turned and looked down. There he stood. Pale eyes, maybe just a trick of the light against his grimy cheeks and tangled black hair. "Bread," he said. "In Brazil, we often buy candy or bread for street kids like this." I told him to follow me. We went into a cafe, coffee for me, and food for my little guest. He ran to the counter to choose. Normally, kids would grab their food and disappear back into the streets without a word. But this boy was different. The cafe counter was long. My coffee was at one end, his bread at the other. They usually don't let street kids stay long. too dirty, too ragged. I finished my coffee, paid, and looked around. He was outside, not allowed to stay inside. He stood on tiptoe, holding the bread, pressing his face to the glass, watching. What's he doing? I thought. I stepped outside. He saw me, ran up, and stood in front of me. He was barely waist high. The little orphan looked up at this tall American stranger, and he smiled, a smile that made my heart skip a beat. "Thank you, sir," he said. Then he scratched his foot, looked unsure, and repeated louder, "Thank you so much." If I could have, I would have bought the whole store for him. Before I could say anything, he turned and ran off. As I write this, I'm still sitting outside that cafe. I'm late for my class, but I keep thinking about him. If one little thank you from a street child moved me this much, imagine how much we could move others if we truly thank them for what they do for us. Story 11. The most precious thing in life. In a peaceful village, there lived a kind-hearted and hard-working young man. One day, on his way home, he stumbled upon a small bottle. Out of curiosity, he tried hard to open it. Suddenly, a puff of white smoke burst out, and a giant genie appeared. "Don't be afraid," the genie said. "You've freed me. I shall grant you 3 wishes. Go ahead, young man, make your wishes." The young man hesitated. What should I wish for?" he pondered. "Please give me some time to think," he replied. "All right," the genie agreed. "You have until sunset." The young man wandered along the beach, deep in thought. Along the way, he saw a group of children playing joyfully. Their innocent laughter and bright faces made him feel that life was truly beautiful. He continued walking and saw a young man risking his life to protect the poor from a gang of robbers. The bravery and compassion moved him deeply. Further ahead, he saw a crowd gathered around an old man. A stranded whale had washed up on the shore, and people were planning to kill it for its meat. The old man stepped forward and said, "What belongs to the sea should be returned to the sea." So the whale was released and saved. As the sun began to set, the genie appeared again. "Have you decided?" he asked. The young man nodded. "Yes. Please grant me the innocence and wonder of a child, the brave and generous heart of youth, and the kindness and compassion of the wise." The genie smiled and said, "Remarkable. You already possess the most precious thing in this world." Story 12. Keeping a promise. A poor young man once saved a little tiger that had been injured in the forest. He tended to its wound and fed it daily until the tiger recovered. Before returning to the wild, the tiger looked at him gratefully and left. Years passed, and the young man grew up and moved to the city. One day, he saw a tiger on the news that had escaped from the zoo and was frightening the locals. He didn't think much of it. But that night, he was startled awake by strange sounds in his backyard. When he looked out, he was shocked to see a tiger pacing back and forth. Terrified, he slowly opened the door. But instead of attacking, the tiger gently lay down at his feet. That's when the young man noticed a scar on its leg, right where he had once treated it. The tiger had come back. It didn't roar or harm him. It just looked into his eyes as if to say, "I remember what you did for me. I promised I'd come back one day." Sometimes, a promise isn't spoken, it's remembered by the heart. Story 13. Happiness is giving. An old man selling sweet potatoes on the sidewalk always had a smile on his face. Though poor, he greeted every customer warmly and often gave a little extra for free. One day, a curious boy asked him, "Grandpa, why are you so happy every day even though you work so hard and don't earn much?" The old man smiled, pointed at his heart, and said, "Because every time I give a little more, I feel full right here. The boy didn't understand then, but years later he remembered the words whenever he helped someone. Happiness isn't something we keep. It's something that grows when we share it. Story 14. Confidence comes from within. A little duck asked his mother, "Mom, why do swans look so beautiful while I look so plain?" His mother replied gently, "Because the swan doesn't spend time comparing itself. It just lives fully as a swan. And you, my dear, will be the most confident duck if you stop wishing to be someone else." Years later, the little duck grew into a strong, joyful duck, not because he became a swan, but because he accepted himself. True confidence isn't about being better than others. It's about being at peace with who you are. Story 15. Mastering your emotions. A student once asked his master, "Why do I often lose my temper so easily?" The master poured a glass of water and handed it to him. "Hold this without spilling a drop," he said. The student held it carefully. After a few minutes, his hand began to tremble. "I'm tired," he said. The master smiled. "Now imagine holding it all day. That's what anger does. It exhausts you the longer you carry it." The student understood. Letting go of emotions doesn't mean denying them. It means knowing when to release them before they control you. Story 16. Life is a journey. A young man was in a hurry to succeed. He asked an old wise man, "Master, how can I reach my goal faster?" The old man replied, "If you want to arrive quickly, walk slowly but steadily." The young man didn't understand. "Isn't rushing the fastest way?" The old man pointed to a mountain in the distance. "To reach the top, you must take each step carefully. Those who rush often stumble and fall. Life is not a race, but a journey. The one who walks steadily may arrive later, but he arrives whole and wise." Story 17. The Mirror of the Soul. A man once asked a monk, "Master, how can I see the true nature of my soul?" The monk replied, "Take a look in the mirror. What do you see?" The man looked into the mirror and said, "I see my face." The monk smiled and said, "That's the surface. To see your soul, you must look beyond the surface." The man asked, "How do I do that?" The monk replied, "Look within. The true nature of your soul is not seen with the eyes, but understood with the heart. The soul is pure, just like a mirror reflects everything without judgment. Clear your mind, and you will see your true self." Story 18. The Seed of Change. A farmer once planted a seed in the ground. He watered it every day. But after many days, the seed still did not sprout. Feeling discouraged, he asked an old wise man, "Why hasn't the seed grown yet?" The wise man smiled and said, "Sometimes growth takes time. The seed is changing, even if you cannot see it. If you give it the care it needs, it will eventually sprout." The farmer followed the wise man's advice. And after some time, a small green shoot emerged from the soil. The farmer said, "Now I see. The change was happening all along. I just had to wait." The wise man nodded. Sometimes, the greatest changes happen within us before they are visible to the world. Patience and care nurture growth. Story 19. The Path to Happiness. A young man asked a wise monk, "Master, what is the path to happiness?" The monk looked at him and said, "Happiness is not found by searching outside, but by looking within." The young man was confused and asked, "But how can I find happiness inside?" The monk smiled and replied, "First, you must let go of anger, resentment, and the desire for things you cannot have. Then, focus on being content with what you already possess. The young man nodded, still unsure of the monk's words. I have everything I need, but still, I feel empty. How can I fill this emptiness? The monk answered. Happiness comes from gratitude. When you are grateful for the small things in life, your heart will be filled with joy. The young man thanked the monk, and after some time, he learned to appreciate the simple things, and his heart was filled with happiness. Story 20. The Path of Peace. One day, a seeker approached a wise master and asked, Master, how can I find true peace in my life? The master took a deep breath and said, Peace is not something you can search for in the world outside. It is already within you. You must learn to silence the noise in your mind and embrace stillness. The seeker was puzzled and asked, How can I silence the noise in my mind? It is always filled with worries and distractions. The master smiled gently and said, Peace comes from acceptance. Accept the present moment without judgment, and let go of your attachment to the past and future. When you learn to be present, peace will naturally arise. The seeker meditated on the master's words. In time, he discovered that by letting go of expectations and accepting things as they are, he found the peace he had been seeking. Story 21. The Ugly and the Beautiful. A teacher went on a trip with his disciples. When night fell, they stopped at an inn to rest. The innkeeper had 2 wives. One was very beautiful, and the other was very ugly. Seeing this, the disciples began debating which wife the innkeeper loved more. Some believed he must love the beautiful one, while others thought he might not love either. In the end, they went to ask the innkeeper. He replied, I love the ugly wife and despise the beautiful one. Hearing this, they were all puzzled and didn't understand why he loved the ugly wife and hated the beautiful one. The reason was this: the innkeeper loved the ugly wife because, although she was not physically beautiful, she had a kind and humble heart. On the other hand, the beautiful wife was always proud of her beauty and constantly dressed to impress, which made her appear unattractive. True beauty comes from within, and arrogance makes the outwardly beautiful person unattractive. The humble, inner beauty of the ugly wife was what the innkeeper cherished. Story 22. The White and Black Horses. A white horse and a black horse were pulling a cart. They argued about which one was better and decided to ask the Creator for a judgment. The Creator said, One horse goes fast, the other slow. The cart will surely collapse. One horse pulls to the left, the other to the right. The cart will fall apart. Only when both horses move in sync, with the same speed, direction, and purpose, will the cart move smoothly. A blanket cannot cover 2 people of different sizes. A boat cannot have 2 different helmsmen. If the hearts and minds are not aligned, one cannot carry the same burden. Story 23. The Trendy Fashion. One day, a gust of wind blew through a forest, and many animals became obsessed with fortune-telling, astrology, and other superstitions. They believed that they could predict their past and future using such methods. The Creator, seeing this strange phenomenon, sighed and said, Superstitions arise from a lack of trust in oneself. You try to use formulas to design your life, but the result is chaos. You cry and laugh, feel joy and sorrow without truly understanding. Story 24. The 4 Gentlemen. Plum, orchid, chrysanthemum, bamboo. The 4 noble flowers, plum, orchid, chrysanthemum, and bamboo, fought for the title of the King of Flowers. They used all sorts of tactics to undermine each other. A crane asked the Creator, Are they not the 4 gentlemen, elegant, humble, and polite? Why have they become so competitive? The Creator replied, Whether or not one is truly a gentleman can only be revealed when temptation is present. It is when faced with desire that one's true nature emerges. Story 25. Fong Xinz's Love Affair. Fong Xinz saw the distant shadow of a butterfly, and his feelings stirred. He said, "Look, the butterfly is so graceful and gentle, its movements light and elegant, unlike the noisy bee that only buzzes around and stings others. The butterfly is truly beautiful." The lotus teased, "That's because you like the butterfly. When you love someone, all their flaws become charming. But when you don't like someone, even their strengths seem insignificant." Story 26. Slaves to Habit. At one time, the lotus was highly praised by everyone. But when the applause faded, it felt as though something was missing, and it was no longer at ease. The creator said, "The drunkard sinks into alcohol, the gambler gets lost in numbers and letters. When you become addicted to habits, you become a slave to them." Story 27. The Ascetic Monk. An ascetic monk, preparing to leave the village where he had lived, decided to live in seclusion in the mountains. He only took a piece of cloth to use as clothes. Later, when he washed his clothes, he realized he needed another piece of cloth to change into. So, he went down the mountain and asked the villagers for a piece of cloth. The villagers, knowing his sincerity, gave him one without hesitation. When the monk returned to the mountain, he discovered a mouse had entered his hut and was gnawing at the cloth he intended to make into clothes. Since the monk had vowed not to kill any living being, he couldn't kill the mouse. But he also couldn't get rid of it, so he went back to the village and asked the villagers for a cat to catch the mouse. After getting the cat, he realized it needed food, so he asked for a cow to provide milk for the cat. But after some time, the monk found that he was spending so much time caring for the cow that he went back to the village to find a homeless man to help him. The homeless man, after staying in the mountains for a while, complained, "I am different from you. I need a wife and a family to live a normal life." The monk reflected on this and realized the man had a point. He couldn't force others to live the same ascetic life as himself. As the story unfolded, you might guess how it ended. Perhaps, 6 months later, the entire village moved up to the mountain. This story often happens around us. Desire is like a chain with links, forever unfulfilled and endless. Greed has existed since the beginning of humanity. It is present in everyone, whether one is ascetic or not, virtuous or wicked, holy or immoral. The desire starts with the basic needs for life: education, work, and health. Without needs, there would be no desire for material things. But as long as there are needs, desire and fulfillment will continue to chase us throughout our lives. Today we may need a new coat, tomorrow a car, the next day a computer. We always want more, but we are never satisfied. Story 28. Money and never eat instant noodles. In this uncertain era, I hope everyone remains healthy and safe. Many people, driven by hunger, cannot control their impulses. There was once a colleague who ate 2 packs of instant noodles every morning. By the age of 31, he was diagnosed with cancer in the blood vessels of the peritoneum, with the tumor resembling a grapevine. After surgery, it was reported as the first case of such a disease found in Taiwan. That colleague passed away at the age of 33. At that time, the younger sister of the department head was attending night classes at a business school in Zhongli, and during her high school years, she often ate instant noodles for lunch. 3 years later, she lost all her teeth. Similarly, there was a female office worker in the company who had a very sweet daughter in middle school. Due to her work schedule, she often had instant noodles for lunch. Even when she was pregnant, she didn't change her eating habits. Eventually, the fetus died in her womb, followed by the death of the department head's daughter. Because her parents worked late into the night, the department head's daughter also often ate instant noodles to fill her stomach during her high school years. That summer, after passing the university entrance exam, she died from a vascular tumor. According to a clinical medical report, Taiwanese instant noodles contain a large amount of oil, often exceeding 20 times the quantity found in American nutritional biscuits and more than 40 times the amount in Japanese instant noodles. That's why people often say Taiwanese instant noodles taste good. But no one knows that Taiwanese instant noodles are uniquely harmful. According to Japanese assessments, the amount of chemicals in Taiwanese instant noodles is too high, and it generally takes 32 days for the liver to detoxify after consuming one packet. Other instant noodles also contain high levels of unhealthy ingredients. I sincerely advise that health is not just a slogan but requires self-control. The desire to eat should be restrained for it to be effective. Instant noodles are very fragrant, but if you choose to eat them, do not consume them continuously. Eating them occasionally is fine, but please avoid eating them regularly. When we value our health, everything becomes meaningful. Heartlessness and caring can have big consequences. Dear friends, sometimes life is truly simple, and we don't need to search for something profound or distant. Simplicity itself is a form of wisdom. From this simple way of living, we can unexpectedly find joy and happiness. Let's listen to and reflect on 10 short, gentle, and profound stories that offer meaningful lessons about living a simple yet fulfilling life. Story 1. The Value of a Small Habit. A man was searching for a job. On his way to the interview room, he casually picked up some pieces of paper on the ground and threw them in the trash. The interviewer, who happened to notice, decided to hire him. It turned out that being rewarded could be so simple, just by cultivating good habits. Story 2. The Angel Who Kept a Promise. There were a few children who really wanted to be praised as good kids and receive gifts. The wise old man of the village gave each child a lamp base, and told them to keep the lamps shining brightly while he was away. 1 day, 2 days, then a week passed, and the old man didn't return. All the children gave up, except for one child who continued to clean the lamp and keep it shining, even though the old man didn't come back. Everyone criticized her, but in the end, she became the good child, the one who obeyed, and received the reward. It turned out that being an angel is simple, just having a sincere and diligent heart. Story 3. To become a god, first know how to bow your head. A young man came to ask to be a disciple of a god. At that moment, a calf climbed out of a muddy puddle, completely covered in dirt. The god said to the young man, "Please help wash it for me." The young man was surprised and replied, "I'm here to study, not to tend cattle." The god said, "If you don't diligently obey, how can you be my disciple?" It turned out that becoming a god is simple, just having a sincere heart to serve. Story 4. Work hard today, success comes tomorrow. There was a young boy learning the trade at a bicycle repair shop. One day, a customer brought in a broken bicycle. Not only did the boy repair it thoroughly, but he also cleaned and polished the bike until it looked brand new. The other apprentices mocked him, saying he was foolish to put in so much effort without getting extra pay. 2 days later, the customer returned. He was so impressed by how well the bike had been fixed and made to look like new that he offered the boy a job at his company with a higher salary. It turned out that achieving success in life is simple, just do what you love, and a little hard work is nothing to be afraid of. Story 5. The Cost of Laziness. A frog living in a field said to another frog on the roadside, "It's too dangerous for you here. Move to my place in the field." The frog on the roadside replied, "I'm used to it here. Why move and make life harder?" A few days later, the frog from the field went to visit the frog on the roadside, only to find that it had been run over by a car and was lying crushed on the road. It turned out that staying safe is simple, Just avoid laziness and take action. Story 6. Escape the burden with a determined will. A small chick was trying to break out of its eggshell. It hesitated, poking its head out to cautiously observe the world. Just then, a turtle passed by, carrying its heavy shell. Seeing this, the chick made up its mind to leave the eggshell immediately. It turned out that escaping the burden is simple. Just let go of stubbornness and prejudice. Story 7. The road to success always starts from one. A tennis coach asked his student, "How do you find the ball that has fallen into the grass?" One person said, "Start looking from the center of the grass." Another said, "Start from the lowest point." Someone else suggested, "Start from the highest point." The coach's answer was simple: search step by step, from one end of the grass to the other. It turns out that the method to find success is simple. Take it step by step, don't leap from step 1 to step 10. Story 8. Teach children not to be afraid of hardship. A father made his son work hard in the fields. His friends told him that he didn't need to make his son struggle so much. "This kind of plant will grow naturally," they said. The father replied, "I am raising my son, not tending to industrial crops." It turns out that raising children is simple. Just let them endure a little hardship. Story 9. Light comes from the courage to change. A lighting store was always brightly lit. Someone asked, "What kind of lights do you use in your store?" "We use very durable ones," the owner replied. "But the lights do break often. We simply replace them as soon as they break," he added. It turned out that maintaining light is simple. Just have the courage to change when needed. Story 10. Beauty comes from calmness. A little child said to her mother, "Mom, you look very beautiful today." The father asked, "Why do you think so?" The child replied, "Because today, Mom didn't get angry." It turns out that having a charming beauty is simple. Just don't get angry. Story 39. Sincere advice. During a lecture by a professor of management, he began with, "First, we are a small experiment." The professor placed large stones into a big jar until it couldn't fit any more, then turned to the students and asked, "Is it full now?" The students answered, "Yes, it's full." The professor then took some small pebbles and poured them into the jar, shaking it so that the small stones fell between the gaps of the large stones. Once he could no longer add any more, he asked again, "Is it full now?" This time, some students hesitated and said, "Maybe not." Next, the professor poured sand into the jar, filling the gaps between the stones. He asked again, "Is it full now?" "No," the students replied in unison. "Very good," the professor said. Finally, the professor poured water into the jar until it was completely full. He looked around the class and asked, "What does this example illustrate?" One student quickly replied, "This shows that no matter how meticulous your planning is, there will always be oversights. But with effort, things can still be perfected." "Not quite," the professor said. "This experiment teaches us that if we don't put the large stones in the jar first, no matter how hard we try later, we won't be able to fit them in." What do the large stones represent in our lives? They could represent time with our loved ones, our beliefs, knowledge, dreams, or our career ambitions, perhaps even a close friend. Whatever they are, we must place them in first. Story 40. The Cracked Pot. A man had 2 large pots to carry water. One of the pots had a crack, so when it carried water from the well, only half of the water remained by the time it got back. The perfect pot was very proud of its perfection, while the cracked pot always felt ashamed for not fulfilling its task. One day, the cracked pot said to the owner, "I am so ashamed of myself. I want to apologize to you." "What are you ashamed of?" "You haven't received all the credit for the effort you've put in because of my mistake." replied the owner. No, said the cracked pot. When you go back, pay attention to the flower beds along the roadside. Sure enough, along the roadside, there were beautiful flower beds. The cracked pot felt happy for a while, but when they got home, it still only had half of the water. I apologize, but did you not notice that the flowers only grow on your side of the road? The owner explained. I knew about your crack, and I made use of it. I planted seeds along your side of the road, and over the years, you've watered them without knowing it. I picked those flowers to decorate our home. Without you, my house wouldn't be as warm and charming as it is today. Each of us is like the cracked pot. We should embrace our flaws and make the best use of them. This story teaches us that our imperfections can still bring beauty and value to the world when we learn to embrace and make use of them. Story 41. The Small Things. A person wanted to hang a large painting on the wall in the living room and invited a neighbor to help. Once the painting was temporarily attached to the wall, the neighbor said, "It doesn't look that good. If you frame it in wood, it would look much better." The person agreed and asked the neighbor to help find some wood for the frame. After finding the wood, the neighbor said, "Wait, this piece is a bit too long. We need to cut it down a bit." So, the person went to find a saw. After sawing a couple of times, the neighbor said, "This saw is too dull. We need to sharpen it." Then, the person went back to get a file. While using the file, he realized that the handle needed to be attached for easier use, so he went into the bushes to find a suitable branch to make a handle. But before cutting the branch, he had to sharpen the axe first. To sharpen the axe, he needed to securely fix the sharpening stone, which led to the need for a stand to hold the stone. And to make the stand, a woodworking bench was required, which was unavailable. So, the person went into the village to borrow the necessary tools. However, he never returned. In the end, the first person had to hang the painting by himself. Later in the day, the person saw the neighbor, who was on his way to pick up a bulky electric saw from the store. In life, we all encounter many forks in the road, but some people get lost in their own maze. These individuals are always busy, but they themselves don't even know what they are busy with. Before we continue, let's take a moment to reflect on the stories presented. Your thoughts are important to us. You can pause the video for 5 seconds to share your thoughts. Story 42. Life is what you think it is. One day, I quickly jumped into a taxi to head to the airport. Our car was driving in the right lane when suddenly a filthy black car swerved out from a parking lot right in front of us. My taxi driver slammed on the brakes. The car slid and narrowly avoided crashing into the other vehicle. The driver of the other car shouted at us, cursing. My taxi driver just smiled and waved at him. I thought to myself that the driver was really a calm and sweet person. Seeing this, I asked him why he acted like that. The other driver nearly destroyed his car and could have sent both of us to the hospital. And this is when my driver taught me a lesson, which I call the garbage truck rule. He explained that in life, there are many people who are just like garbage trucks. They drive around aimlessly, their bodies full of trash, their minds filled with frustration, anger, and dissatisfaction with life. The more trash they accumulate, the more they want to dump it somewhere. And sometimes they aim it right at you. So, why should you let them dump their garbage on you? Why not just smile, wave at them, wish them well, and continue on your way? Remember, don't take any of their garbage and spread it to others at work, at home, or to the people you meet on the street. The key thing to remember is that successful people are those who don't let the trash of others interfere with or take away a day of their life. Life is short, so why should we wake up from sleep and regret something that happened? Therefore, love those who treat you well and pray for those who treat you badly. Life is only 10% what happens to you and 90% how you handle it. Story 43. Choose your friends. One day, 3 disciples of Socrates came to ask him how to find an ideal friend. Socrates did not answer but told them to go to the field and pick the largest stalk of wheat. The first disciple walked a few steps and immediately saw a large and beautiful stalk of wheat, so he picked it. But as he continued walking, he saw even larger stalks. He regretted not walking further and picking one of those. The second disciple learned from the first one's mistake. Each time he saw a large stalk, he thought to himself, "There might be bigger and more beautiful ones ahead." However, by the time he was almost at the end of the field, he realized the opportunity was gone. The third disciple learned from both of them. For the first third of the field, he examined and categorized the wheat stalks. For the next third, he checked if his initial assessment was correct. By the last third of the field, he chose a stalk that was both large and beautiful from the best ones. Although it wasn't necessarily the largest or the most beautiful, he was satisfied with his choice as he completed the journey. Story 44. The Magic of Life. A young man was deeply in love with a beautiful young lady. Not only was she beautiful, but she also dressed fashionably and lived a luxurious life. The young man loved her and always obeyed her. Whatever she wanted, he immediately did it. One day, just before their engagement, the young man asked her, "What kind of engagement gift would you like?" She honestly replied, "I want a diamond ring." So, the young man bought a precious diamond ring for her. There was another young man from a poor background who also loved a girl, not as beautiful but diligent and thrifty. A day before the engagement, he asked her, "What gift would you like me to give you?" She replied, "I only need a crystal ring." So, the young man spent a few coins to buy her a crystal ring, and she was very happy. 20 years later, the first couple had almost spent all their wealth. Life had become difficult, and even the precious diamond ring was sold. Now, the woman wore the crystal ring. As for the second couple, their life was much better. Through hard work and savings, they gradually became wealthy. The crystal ring from before was now replaced with a diamond ring, and they lived a happy life. Life is like magic. 20 years passed, and everything had changed. But from today's actions, we can see their future transformations. Life can turn crystal into diamond, or it can turn diamond into crystal. Story 45. The 3 Ancient Trees. In a forest, 3 ancient trees were discussing their futures. The first tree said, "One day, I want to become a treasure chest with a splendid shape." The second tree said, "I want to become a large ship. I will wait for the queen and king to travel the world." The third tree said, "I want to grow tall and become the largest tree in this forest. Everyone who looks up will see me reaching the sky." A year later, a group of people entered the forest and cut down the trees. All 3 smiled happily, believing that their dreams would come true. When the first tree was sold to a carpenter, it was turned into a feeding trough for livestock and placed in a barn, covered with straw. The second tree was sold to a boat builder, who made it into a small fishing boat. The third tree was chopped into pieces and left in the dark. These were not the things they had hoped for. One day, a couple came to the barn. The wife was about to give birth, and the husband hoped to find a cradle for the baby. The straw-covered feeding trough became a warm bed for the child. The first tree felt its importance, and realized that it was protecting a small life. A few years later, some fishermen sailed on the second tree's boat during a great storm. The people on the boat were exhausted, but the second tree knew it had enough stability to keep them safe and calm. As for the third tree, one day someone came and collected the wood. It was turned into a fence to protect against wild animals. When the sun rose, The third tree realized it had the strength to stand firm on the hilltop. When things don't go as planned, don't despair, because everything happens for a reason. All three trees fulfilled their dreams. Even though the way they reached their goals wasn't as they expected, life does not disappoint those with good hearts. Let me know if you need further help. Story 46. No defense in the heart. The camellia tree, holding its heart that was crushed and bleeding, sorrowfully spoke to the Creator. Strangers can hurt me, and I can quickly forget. But why do those closest to me hurt me the most? The Creator sighed and said, Closeness doesn't always mean intimacy, and intimacy doesn't always mean love. The closer people are, the deeper they hurt each other. In front of people we consider close, we do not set up defenses in our hearts, and as a result, we receive wounds that are deep and large. Reflection. There is a Vietnamese proverb that says, the more you love, the more it hurts. And it is 100% true. Couples on the verge of divorce, weren't they once deeply in love? Young lovers who break up, didn't they once abandon the future careers their parents had planned for them to follow the call of love? They once ignored everything for the sake of love. Praise and criticism, hatred and joy, pain and happiness. They ignored everything just to be loved. But the greatest pain for them is betrayal by the one they loved, for the deeper the love and trust, the more intense the hatred when things fall apart. Story 47. Who do we live for? A wealthy man had a 30-year-old son who didn't understand anything and lived a foolish life, relying entirely on his father. One day, the father invited a fortune teller to read the son's fate. The father was 50 years old, and the fortune teller predicted he would live to 80. Then the fortune teller read the son's fate and said he would live to 62. The son punched his chest and cried loudly. The fortune teller said, "Living to 62 is already quite long." The son replied, "I'm not crying about that. I'm crying because my father can only live to 80. That means after I turn 60, who will take care of me for the last 2 years?" Story 48. The Candle. One night, there was a power outage, and a candle was brought into the middle of the room. The candle was lit, and its flickering flame illuminated the whole room. People marveled. "Wow, the candle is so bright. Thank goodness, or we wouldn't be able to see anything." Hearing this, the candle felt joyful and pushed the surrounding darkness away with all its might. However, the hot wax began to drip down the candle's body. The candle realized that it was becoming shorter and shorter, and when it was halfway gone, it suddenly panicked. "If I keep burning like this, I'll be gone soon. Why do I have to suffer like this?" it thought, and with a light breeze, it extinguished itself. A thin wisp of smoke rose, and the candle went out. People in the room anxiously said, "It's gone! It's so dark, what should we do now?" The candle smiled, proud of its importance. But then someone suggested, "Candles are easily blown out by the wind. Let me find an oil lamp." The oil lamp was lit, and the candle that was still burning halfway was put away in a drawer. The candle felt sad. From now on, it would be locked in the drawer and rarely have the chance to burn brightly again. The candle realized that its happiness came from shining brightly for others. Even though it could only burn with a small flame, and even though it would eventually melt away, it was a candle after all. Story 49. The Secret. There was an old man who sold fish. His business was thriving, and many people came to buy his fish. They said his fish were the best quality and the most delicious. Other fish sellers couldn't figure out the secret because they all fished in the same place. Even the water in which they kept the fish was taken from the same source. Although the fish and water were the same, customers still claimed that the old man's fish were better and tastier. One day, the old man went on a trip. The other fish sellers decided to check his fish tank to uncover his secret. They were very surprised to find that his tank was just like theirs. However, in his tank, there was a large, aggressive fish that kept thrashing around in the water. After some thought, they finally figured it out. The large fish never stopped thrashing, not allowing the other fish to rest. As a result, the other fish were forced to swim constantly, and naturally, their meat became firmer and of better quality. Story 50. Knowing how to fly. The bird said, "I know how to fly." The lotus flower replied, "I know how to fly too." The bird arrogantly looked down on the lotus and said, "Are you serious? You're stuck in the ground. How could you possibly know how to fly?" The lotus, happily and naturally, responded, "I fly using my wings, while I fly using my heart." Story 51. The Son of the Fish King. There was a fisherman with exceptional fishing skills, known as the Fish King. But as he grew older, the Fish King became sad because his 3 sons were very average at fishing. He often shared his troubles with others, saying, "I don't understand why my fishing skills are so good, yet my sons are so poor at it. I've taught them everything. When they were young, I taught them the basics: how to set the nets, where to place the mesh to catch the most fish, how to row the boat without scaring the fish, and when to cast the nets. When they grew older, I taught them about tides and fish behavior. I passed on all the knowledge I had accumulated over the years, yet their skills are still not up to par with mine." After listening to him, someone asked, "Every time they set the nets, did you help them?" "Yes," the Fish King replied. "I taught them in great detail to ensure they had the best skills." "Did you go with them each time they went to the sea?" "Yes, to avoid getting lost, I always followed their lead." The person then said, "But that's the mistake you made. You taught them the skills but didn't let them apply them on their own. A person who only knows the theory but doesn't apply it in practice is like someone with no experience at all. How can they become skilled?" Story 52. Try another way. You are creating a trap for yourself if you continue to lock yourself into one way of thinking without trying a different approach. It was a typical end of July day. I was sitting in a quiet room of a small hotel hidden among pine trees, listening to the desperate sounds of a life-or-death struggle taking place just a few steps away. It was a small fly, using its last bit of energy to try to get through the windowpane. Its wings trembled, as if telling a tragic story of its failed strategy. It kept trying harder, but the strategy wasn't working. Its frantic efforts brought no hope. Ironically, this struggle was creating a trap for itself. The more it tried, the more exhausted it became. It was futile for the fly to try to break the glass with its tiny strength. Yet, it risked its life for its goal, using determination and effort. In the end, the fly succumbed to its fate, exhausted and dead on the windowsill. Just 10 steps away, the door was wide open. It would have only taken 10 more seconds to fly to freedom. And this little creature would have found the world outside, the world it was searching for. If only it hadn't locked itself into one way of thinking and had tried a different approach, it could have easily escaped. Trying harder is not always the solution to success. It may not guarantee the results you hope for in life. Sometimes, it is the beginning of even more problems, making things worse. If you bet all your hopes on finding a single way out by working your hardest for a limited goal, you might destroy all the other opportunities that could have opened up for you. Story 53. The Slopes of Life. When you cycle up a small hill, sweating and feeling your legs almost give way, you'll experience the exhilaration when your bike speeds down the slope ahead. The sweat evaporates, leaving a cool feeling that makes you forget all your exhaustion. Life is similar to a long road. Even when you're cruising on flat ground, You never forget that there will be times when you have to face uphill struggles and downhill slides. A friend once told me this simple truth when she was dealing with both personal and professional failures at the same time. What impressed me most about her was her courage. She didn't cry, didn't blame anyone, and didn't silently collapse. She knew how to manage her emotions, set her sadness aside, and focus her energy on overcoming the slope. In this fast-paced life, many times fatigue, boredom, and disappointment can drain your strength and take away your optimism. You might feel like giving up, but if you stop and look back at where you started, you'll realize the wonderful feeling of having overcome all those obstacles. There will come a time when you realize you've reached the top of the hill, take a deep breath, and look carefully ahead. You won't need to shout with joy. At that moment, you'll remind yourself to seek new heights and never let yourself slide too quickly downhill. Our lives are like journeys because we always have many choices, but we shouldn't waste too much time searching for the results we want. When you're truly exhausted, it's okay to stop by the road to rest for a moment. Stopping and walking on is the quickest way to regain your strength. Climbing up may be slow and tiring, but it's undeniably safer than rushing downhill. The feeling of speeding forward is indeed wonderful, but who knows what dangers lie ahead that you may not see in time, or what if the brakes fail? There are hundreds of obstacles, and you should never be complacent. Life is like a road. When you're going through pain, that's when you're forced to climb the hill on your life's journey. Of course, when you're enjoying happiness, that doesn't mean misfortune will never appear. Life is indeed a journey, and what you need is to save your strength and inspiration for the upcoming parts of the road. Story 54, A Drop of Gratitude. Exactly at 5 p.m., Mr. Chu, the taxi driver, had to hand over his car. Seeing that it was already 5:15, he hung up a temporary sign in the car saying no passengers today. It was the weekend, and students from the 40th High School dormitory poured out. Mr. Chu, out of habit, stopped his car and watched the students walk back and forth. They were all in school uniforms, smiling brightly. A little girl with a limp came over, carrying a school bag. She hesitated, looking quickly at both sides of the street, and said shyly, "Uncle Chu, can I ride in your taxi?" Mr. Chu explained that he had to hand over the car and could only stop for a moment. The girl lowered her head. A few seconds later, she earnestly said, "Thank you, Uncle Chu. I'll just ride for one stop." Her 2 words of gratitude touched Mr. Chu's heart. He saw that she was wearing a clean white shirt and carrying a school bag that had seen better days. Unable to resist, he sighed and said, "Get in the car." The girl happily climbed into the car. As they reached a turn, she suddenly cleared her throat and said, "Uncle, I only have 3 coins, so I'll get off after one stop." Mr. Chu looked at the rearview mirror and saw the girl's face turning red, but she said nothing. This was a taxi in the city, and the fare for a short ride was usually 5 coins. When they reached the bus station, Mr. Chu stopped the car. The girl stood by the door and happily said, "Thank you so much, Uncle." Mr. Chu saw her limp away, feeling a pang of sympathy in his heart. From that weekend on, Mr. Chu saw the girl standing by the school gate every weekend. Several taxis passed by, but the girl seemed not to notice them, only standing and waiting. She was waiting for him, Mr. Chu guessed, and felt warm inside. When he drove up, the girl waved her hand from afar. Mr. Chu was surprised. His taxi looked just like all the others, so how could she recognize it? This was the 3-coin ride, just one stop. Mr. Chu didn't ask the girl why she only waited for his taxi or why she only rode for one stop. The girl had a small secret in her heart, and Mr. Chu understood that. 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, gradually it became a habit for Mr. Chu. Every weekend, before he handed over the car, The last passenger he would pick up was the girl with the limp from 40th High School. When Mr. Chu hung the sign, "No passengers today," he would wait by the school gate. The girl, only 14 or 15, would run to him like a little deer crossing the street, calling out a loud goodbye to her friends. In just 5 minutes she would get off, but the last thing she would say was always, "Thank you, Uncle Chu." No matter how far he had to drive, Mr. Chu would always pick her up, even if he got fined for being late and handing over his car. He didn't mind. He just wanted to spend a little more time with her. Time passed quickly, and the routine continued for another year. The second summer came, and Mr. Chu saw the girl carrying a heavy school bag. Suddenly, he felt like he had lost something. He realized she had graduated from middle school and would be going to high school. "Thank you, Uncle Chu," the girl said. "This may be the last time I get to ride in your taxi. I'm sorry to trouble you so much. I passed the exam for Tan Tap High School. I might only come home once every 6 months." Mr. Chu looked at her through the rearview mirror, feeling uneasy. She was indeed very talented. Tan Tap High School was a prestigious school in the province, and getting in meant she was on the path to college. "Then let me take you home," Mr. Chu said. The girl shook her head. "I only have 3 coins. I won't take your money this time." Mr. Chu looked at his watch, and though he would be late handing over his car, he didn't mind. He just wanted to spend a little more time with her. The girl gave him a very far address, adding 7 more stops. Half an hour later, Mr. Chu stopped the car. The girl took her school bag and got out. Mr. Chu took out a box from the car and said, "This is a gift for you." The girl was surprised, accepting the gift. She bowed and said, "Thank you, Uncle Chu." Mr. Chu watched her limp away into her house and sighed deeply. "From now on I won't see you again," he thought. He didn't even know her name. Story 55. Finding a Good Person. It had been 10 years, and Mr. Chu was still driving his taxi. Today, business was slow, and he was listening to a music program on the radio when he heard an announcement looking for a driver from 10 years ago. The announcement mentioned the taxi with the number AS, and Mr. Chu was stunned. Someone was looking for him. He had driven this exact car 10 years ago. He called the radio station and was surprised when they gave him the number. Who could it be? He was always busy making a living, and aside from his wife, he didn't know any other women. He dialed the number, and a young girl's voice answered. "Is this you, Mr. Chu? Mr. Chu?" He was taken aback. The voice sounded so familiar, but he couldn't remember who it was. "Thank you, Mr. Chu," the girl said. They arranged to meet at a cafe. When he saw the girl, Mr. Chu was shocked. Could it be the same girl from 10 years ago, the one who only had 3 coins? She stood up, bowed, and said, "I thank you from the bottom of my heart, Mr. Chu." The girl began to tell her story. 12 years ago, her father had also been a taxi driver. He loved her very much, and every weekend, he would drive her home. One day, during the Lunar New Year, the family was returning to their hometown when her father borrowed a van from a friend to carry more things. Halfway through, a heavy snowstorm hit, and unfortunately, he crashed into a cargo truck. The van was destroyed, and her father died on the spot. The girl was severely injured, and after the funeral, her mother had to pay a large sum of money to the friend for the damaged van, and also had to pay for her surgery. Her mother worked tirelessly, and the girl, despite her injury, immediately returned to school, determined to grow up quickly. She was very strong, enduring everything, but there was one thing she couldn't accept: anyone pitying her. So, she never told anyone about the accident. When she took the bus home from school, classmates would ask why she was riding public transport. She lied, saying her father was away. She kept the lie for half a year until she met Mr. Chu. She saw his taxi parked on the side of the road, just like her father used to wait for her in front of her school. She only had 3 coins for the bus fare but spent them all on the taxi, riding for just 1 stop before walking another half-hour home. Although the road was long, she walked calmly because no one knew her father had passed away. She didn't think Mr. Chu knew. The taxi he was driving was the same one her father had driven. The taxi number was engraved in her mind. She could recognize it from afar. She had kept the medal Mr. Chu had given her 10 years ago, and it was a treasure to her. Without it, I might not have made it this far. Even though I lost my father, I still have him in my heart, she said, pulling out the medal. The back of the medal was tarnished, and it had an inscription. May your life be as bright as this medal. Story 56. A drop of water to repay kindness. The girl took the arm of Driver Chu and led him out of the coffee shop. Watching her drive away in the distance, Driver Chu stopped the car by the side of the road and let his tears fall. The girl with the limp. Only now did Driver Chu know her name, Lam Maituet. The girl was very much like his own child, who had died of cancer 10 years ago. Every weekend, he would drive to school to pick her up. Before getting in the car, his daughter would say, "Thank you, Dad." And when she got out, she would say the same thing. "Thank you, Dad," making him feel immense happiness. That medal was from his daughter's Olympic competition, and it made him very proud and hopeful. But his daughter suddenly passed away, leaving him unprepared. Every weekend, when he drove past high school number 40, he would stop the car. It seemed as though he could still see his daughter running out from the school gates, getting in the car, and loudly saying, "Dad, thank you." On his way home, Driver Chu bought a newspaper. As he opened it, he immediately saw a picture of that girl with the limp. It seemed like she was smiling at him. The headline read, "Lam Maituet, the youngest vice president of a multinational corporation, the pride of City S." Driver Chu was shocked, his mouth open in disbelief. He read quickly, then took out a cigarette, lighting it out of habit. Suddenly, his hand brushed against an envelope. Inside, there was a thick stack of US dollars. Driver Chu was stunned, wondering when Lam Maituet had put the money in his pocket. Was it when she took his arm and led him away? Among the US dollars, there was a small note. "Dear Driver Chu, this is the return on love, please accept it. The priceless love will forever remain in my heart. Thank you, Driver Chu." Driver Chu's eyes widened once more. "Thank you for taking the time to explore with me these 56 profound stories. These small stories contain great lessons on humanity, the way we live, and the enduring values in life. We hope that from these stories, each person will find inspiration to live more fully and meaningfully every day. If this video has brought any value to you, feel free to share it with your loved ones and click the subscribe button to not miss any upcoming videos. See you again, and we wish you peace and joy. Thank you for taking your precious time to listen to the stories from the wisdom of the elite. If these messages have touched your heart, or simply provided a few peaceful moments of relaxation, please support us by clicking the subscribe button. Your support is a great motivation for the channel to continue spreading good values to the community. Thank you sincerely. Let me know if you need further adjustments.